Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another Rockies Daily. I'm your host, Scott Ayers. We are talking all things Colorado Rockies, and folks, I might have jumped the gun. Last episode, hand up, said the Colorado Rockies own the AL East. I might have been wrong. The Colorado Rockies do, in fact, not own the AL East as they fall to the Toronto Blue Jays 5-1. And lots to talk about in this game. Some ugly things continue to butt their heads with this Colorado Rockies team, and obviously want to kind of touch on a good chunk of this here. And one of the big things is, once again, the bats just go cold for the Colorado Rockies. Max Scherzer, the ghost, the corpse, the zombification of Max Scherzer, however you want to say it, he's still pitching and was really solid for Toronto. Only Hunter Goodman and TJ Rumfield felt like the only guys who were able to get to him. He gets the win for Toronto. And honestly, this is a game that, the score says it's 5-1. The Rockies were in this game until really the seventh inning when Agnos lost a little bit of control. But overall, this is a Rockies team that had an opportunity to take the lead in the seventh inning. And it kind of goes back into this all-encompassing thing for the Colorado Rockies, that margin for error. And when the Rockies avoid making mistakes, they will have an opportunity to win games. And win games the way that they did against Toronto a night before. However, just not enough here. And I think a lot of different multiple facets as well. One big play, it really felt like TJ Rumfield's biggest mistake of the year. This whole sequence really was a bit of a pain, but Rumfield makes a nice play to get a base hit. It's a really nice contact. Then on a pass ball, Brenton Doyle has a 3-0 count. Perfect. Licking your chomps. Just one out. And he takes a pitch, and then he swings and misses at the next two, and that's strike three, essentially being in the dirt. And the next stat back, Kyle Karros. New pitcher comes in, Karros, and it's Rumfield who gets picked off at second base. Any opportunity to score is over there, and Toronto scores 3 in the next inning. So pretty darn disappointing just for the Rockies not to get more, just because that Toronto bullpen was used the day before. They had to pitch essentially an entire game, and the Rockies aren't able to do much with it. Rumfield, obviously, once again, I know I mentioned his mistake, but he's incredible. He's incredible to start the year. He goes 3 for 4. His average is now up to 444. Troy Johnson does go 0 for 2, but ultimately, and I mentioned Johnson just because we talked about it on the last show, and what a solid pickup he's been so far. But yeah, ultimately, one of the big wrinkles that I did like seeing, we talked about it. We didn't want to see Edward Julian and Jake McCarthy back-to-back anymore, and it was Ryan Ritter who gets the start. They had Rumfield playing DH, Castro at first, but it was very refreshing to see. Ritter did go 0 for 2, but he just provides more at the plate regardless over Julian. But obviously, it was a tough loss for the Rockies, and just not enough from this team, and that's where we lead into talking about some of these topics here. The first of which is Ryan Feltner. And oh my gosh, Feltner was looking so good. And it's a doozy of how he leaves this game. Takes a line drive right back at him, hits him in the hip, and after just 3 innings, he's pulled just due to an injury. And that was the only hit he gave up. It was a line drive off his hip. He has 4 strikeouts and a walk in 3 innings pitched. It's just a bummer because it really felt like it was setting up to be a really strong outing from Feltner. He was cruising through that Blue Jays lineup, at least the first time through. And because of that, it kind of put the Rockies out of sorts. Kind of what happened to the Toronto the game before. Now it was the Rockies' turn. Juan Maya, he goes an inning and a third, and honestly, I don't even know if he should have appeared in the fifth inning. That's one of those things where I think it might fall more on Warren Schaefer than anything else. I understand, like, you can trust relievers to maybe give you a couple innings, but just with the uncertainty with some of these guys in the bullpen, why not go Maya and then Hill and then Bernardino? And then they had Agnos pitch the last 2 innings, who also struggled. I do want to touch on the Jaden Hill situation because, I know he gives up a hit, he gives up a walk, and that's how Toronto took a 2-1 lead. But honestly, all things considered, could have been so much worse. He actually gets 2 big strikeouts. And honestly, walking Guerrero with the bases loaded, there are so many outcomes that are far worse. And I recognize the Rockies lose the game 5-1. And maybe in the moment it's like, man, you just don't want to give up a run. But sometimes it's just limiting your losses. And it was even mentioned on the broadcast, but it is so important to just limit your losses if you're a team like the Colorado Rockies. If you're in a bases-loaded jam like this, walking away only giving up 2 runs, at the time, it honestly didn't hurt as bad because then in the next inning, Hunter Goodman gives you a bomb to cut it to 1. And ensuing, TJ Rumfield is on second base with a chance to tie the game. And so those are moments for the Colorado Rockies. We talk about the margin of error. And how do you limit? Because there's a talent discrepancy, obviously. But how do you limit games from getting out of hand? And the Rockies did enough for about 6 innings until Agnos gave up those runs. But that was, I think, an interesting thing to note is that it could be worse in some of these at-bats. Now, if you're facing the bottom of the lineup, you got to get out of it without giving up a run. But when you're going up against one of the best lineups in baseball with the bases juice and you only give up 2, you can't really be too upset with that because it was a 2-1 ball game going into the 7th inning. It's against, again, one of the best teams in the AL. But ultimately, you go back to Feltner. The injury, it's pretty painful because it really was shaping up to be a really great start. And now, depending on what that injury is, now does Dollander go to the number 5 spot? Does Tanner Gordon get called up? I don't necessarily know. I would assume that it would be Dollander. But man, his first appearance didn't look great. But you have to give him an opportunity and hope that he continues to learn and pitch at the major league level. Just sad for Ryan Feltner, who had such a marvelous start and was probably on pace to have the best start of the year for the Rockies, which isn't saying much because we still have yet to see a starter get through the 5th inning. We haven't seen it, and now Kyle Freeland will have his hands full pitching against Toronto, and then you play the Phillies. So who knows when the Rockies will get that first quality start. Felt like it could have been Feltner tonight, but he was robbed of it. Now let's talk about something that the worst storyline so far, which is the Rockies' inability to score, and especially score with runners in scoring position. This game was a little bit different, though, folks. The Rockies only went 0 for 3 with runners in scoring position, so they didn't even need to bother about that because they just didn't get guys in scoring position. It's funny, though, the Rockies had 7 hits, right? Like, it wasn't like opening day where they were just struggling to get any sort of base runners, but 7 hits, not many opportunities, had a couple of bad double plays. And, this is a Rockies team, a couple of different stats early on in the year, but team batting average, they're 10th. They're 10th in Major League Baseball, but their on-base percentage is 22nd, and their slugging is 13th. And so kind of this, right? I need to pull up runners in scoring position, but they're probably near the bottom of baseball, if not the worst team in baseball right now when it comes to just bringing in runs. And that Brenton Doyle at bat that I mentioned earlier is just a key moment where you have a 3-0 count. How are we striking out in this situation? And then how are you getting thrown out at second? And it's just disappointing because there are things that the Rockies are doing well offensively. Stolen bases, this team is electric on the base path. They say, screw it, Hunter Goodman, go ahead and steal second for us, right? Like they are just sending dudes at will. And so that aspect has been really fun for the Colorado Rockies. TJ Rumfield has been really fun. Tovar has been really fun. We got to see a Hunter Goodman bomb. That's been fun. But it's just not enough to overcome this start to the year where, man, they just refuse to knock in runs. And it will kind of go into kind of the last segment of they just need to get healthy with some of their key bats being gone. But man, it's a problem, and it's not a problem that I see getting better. At least in the near future, just because of how difficult this schedule is, and how many talented pitchers that they will be facing. So man, it's just disappointing. And then on the flip end for the Rockies, ERA, they're 19th in Major League Baseball, but they have allowed the third worst opponent batting average, and so it's not really a recipe for success. And we kind of expected it coming into the year. There were going to be some issues, but it's really this lineup. That's really been the biggest thing. I understand you can look at Agnos today. You can look at the walk-off from Victor Vodnik and say, man, the pitching wasn't good enough. And I would agree with you. I'd shake your hand and say, you're darn right it's not good enough. But it's the hitting that is far worse for this team right now. And some of their scoring or some of their rankings are inflated just because of that 14-run outing. Because before that, they score 1 run, 3 runs, 3 runs, 14, 1 run. There's a polar bear in Arlington, Texas, and it's not the 1 or 2 run games. It's just not going to cut it. And it's just disappointing so far. So far in the year. One of the things we'll do too, moving on for shows to come, is maybe brainstorming different ideas of who are some players that would fit this roster, fit the rebuild, and hopefully be contributors to helping this lineup succeed and not have the struggles. And really, look at the different position groups. You look at the outfield and you just kind of shake your head. Jordan Beck, Brenton Doyle, and Jake McCarthy have just not been good at the plate, at least. And honestly, defensively, you think of the line Jake McCarthy made and his struggles in the outfield. It's just, right, like Brenton Doyle, we know he's more defensive focused, and honestly, he had a better day at the plate. He went 1 for 2. He's been solid actually in this series with Toronto, and it's early on in the year. But you just look at the outfield. None of those guys are hitting over 200. I obviously expect Doyle and Beck to get there. They'll figure it out. McCarthy, I'm not convinced. I know he went 1 for 4 today. But it's making me scratch my chin watching him at the plate. A lot of pop outs, a lot of ground balls. And, if he can get in play, he's so quick. And if he can get on the base path, he's so quick. I know I'm sounding like a broken record. I talked about this yesterday. But, yeah, that's honestly, if I'm the Colorado Rockies, and this is something else I'm going to do a segment on tomorrow, newsflash segment on tomorrow, who would be a good replacement? He started in left field. Who would be a left fielder that would be an upgrade for the Colorado Rockies? And it honestly might just be the guys who are hurt right now, Tyler Freeman and Mickey Moniak. you just kind of feel it, right? Like, especially Moniak and the power that he brings, and his ability to drive in runs. I know he's not defensively as capable as someone like McCarthy, but right now I would rather put Jordan Beck or Tyler Freeman in left, put Moniak in right. And then first base kind of figure out, right? Like maybe put Troy Johnson or Rumfield and have the other DH. That's where I'm at right now. Just because it's just not enough. Early signs show it's not enough. And McCarthy, obviously early season stuff, but he struggled at the plate last year. Like, this isn't coming from he batted 350 last year and just an early season slump. Like, he didn't play in Arizona. Like, he struggled in Arizona, and now he's struggling in Colorado. And I don't want to turn this into a negativity thing. So I'm going to focus on the positive and focus on guys like Tyler Freeman and Mickey Moniak and being excited for when they get healthy and when they can contribute again for the Colorado Rockies, because they will make a positive impact. And honestly, when this team becomes fully healthy, I do think this lineup will look actually a little bit more daunting for opposing pitchers, which can be easy to laugh at, right? Like, I know I just went on a tyrant. They struggle to drive in runs. But honestly, you get Moniak back, and you really can flip things around. And if Rumfield can be a guy who's he's batting crazy right now, but if he can bat over 280, that's huge, because now the top of your lineup could be Tovar, Goodman, Moniak, Rumfield, Johnson, Freeman, and then maybe you have Castro, Karros, and Beck, right? Like that, and Doyle. That's much more competent than kind of what we've seen. And I know that they're trying to put trust in McCarthy and Castro, some of these more veteran players. But there's still solid bats on this team, and I just don't want this show to turn into a big negativity central. That's not what we're about. But it is important to note, hey, there's some guys that we need to have come back, and maybe to look at some guys elsewhere. And that is the final thing I want to end the show on. Tip my cap to the front office, because TJ Rumfield and Troy Johnson are two gets that really you didn't give up much for, and they've turned into, so far, just home run moves by the front office. And those are the kind of things that you need to do in order to build a team for the future. Is you have to be savvy. You have to find guys that people aren't looking at, and recognize that they can be key pieces for your team in the future. Again, it's early. They could both finish under 200, and we look back at this and say, you know what, those were misses. But they just don't feel like misses, just for how they have been at the plate. And, how they've looked all spring. They've just looked good all spring, and now they're doing it against a lot of really solid pitchers. Rumfield, it's not like he's getting knocked against nobodies. He has been productive all year long. It's been a really great start to the season for him. We just need to get some reinforcements to make this team a little bit more competitive with Moniak and Freeman. So, with that, does it for another Rockies Daily. Thank you so much for tuning in. Greatly appreciate it. Make sure to hit that like button, share, subscribe. You name it. And hey, you know what? It's a tough loss. But as Rockies fans, we're ready for the next one. The sun will rise tomorrow. And with that, I will see you tomorrow. Have a wonderful day, and I will see you tomorrow.